Good evening. Welcome to the February 1st Open Space Committee meeting. We are being broadcast live this evening, and we will be taped and rebroadcast. Need to know if anyone else is recording the meeting this evening. Okay. So, anyways, at the last meeting, we're officially called to order. In the last meeting, we had some open space plan updates from Matt. He said you two have been diligently working on some of the sections.
Yes.
So do you have any further progress that you guys have made to tell us about?
The minutes reference some sections that we were working on. Since the last meeting, we've completed those sections. So that was section 4 and 5. And there are two main sections remaining for us to tackle. Section 7 and section 8.
Okay.
And then formatting, or just adjusting the formatting to include or reflect the corrections that we made.
Okay.
So the section 7 is the list of town-owned land. It's the inventory in the report.
Okay.
And we were requested to include some more detail. So this exercise that the committee has just gone through actually will help inform.
So we can break it up into sections, like the way it's broken out here, maybe.
Yeah, perhaps it can be broken into sections similar to this. So one of the main things the state wanted to see is a column that displays the potential for recreation or for conservation, and so.
And that's one of the lists here that we have.
Exactly. So those are great help. It's obviously wasn't our main goal from the committee reviewing this list, but it certainly is going to feed into the report in that respect.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So we're working on it weekly, and it has been a diligent effort on our behalf. So
the two sections I think you were working on before were relevant to endangered species and forestry.
Yes.
So you got the information that you needed.
We did.
Great.
We received the information from the state that has been incorporated into the plan, and it's essentially updating the inventory list and then going through the goals, and she requested some fine-tuning on the timeframes for the goals. So
do you still think it's doable to have it finished by the spring?
I think that seems like a reasonable goal.
Good. Well, that's great, and we can finally put that behind us.
Yeah, it will feel like a load off of all our shoulders, I'm sure.
Now, what will happen? I know the master plan committee has its first meeting tomorrow night, and I know that the open space, there is an element in the master plan for open space. Now, are they going to start developing a new open space plan, or are they going to be able to take a portion or some of what you guys have worked on already?
And I haven't discussed that. If the committee had a recommendation, from my perspective, I would say we've worked hard over the last couple of years to get this plan in a good place, and that it would probably be worthwhile for the master plan committee to incorporate the work that we've done as opposed to the reverse.
No, that's the 2014 plan officially.
Right.
And the master plan committee is starting from now.
Yes. And
so they probably have to update the 14 plan?
A 2-year process or so.
Yeah, right.
The open space plan will, once approved, will carry us through to 2021. So we'll still have 5 years of life left in that, which will give us some time, hopefully, to pursue some grants and get some of these objectives taken care of.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad it seems like there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel,
if you will. Sure. Yeah, that's great. Good. Does anybody have any questions relative to the open space plan? No. Okay, so I guess at this point in time, I mean, at the last meeting, we finished looking at all of the town-owned parcels that were 10,000 square feet or greater. And I think we kind of pretty much decided that the smaller ones were sort of, there was an effort and futility to really look at the teeny little things that are there because they're there. And,
Right.
you know, so I think we've pretty much come to that conclusion. And I think we pretty much left it that you and Matt were going to sort out the parcels that we had looked at that were over 10,000 square feet and come up with an organized plan, if you will, here of where we're at. And we have 5 separate categories of lists here. And I think is the plan now that we're going to assign specific recommendations to what's on each list? Was that the plan?
So, in discussing this with Matt,
Yeah?
our thought was that, you know, this was a goal from the town manager, and her request was that our town-owned land be reviewed by this committee and that recommendations be made. I think it, you know, it might be a worthwhile discussion to consider what format those recommendations would come in, you know. It could be as simple as this list. Here's a list of all the parcels. They're in these 5 categories. We do, you know, we did take notes as we reviewed each parcel.
Yep.
Those notes were included in these lists. The parcels do have some description to them. So, you know, it could be this format, or perhaps there's something else. I'd be interested to hear what the committee.
Would you give a
would weigh
packet?
in.
Would you give a packet of the ones that might be for sale?
That was one of the, I think that's one of the sections, isn't it?
We do have a section that we've titled potential residential development.
Yeah.
Or like a fellow might want to buy a chunk? Is next to that.
Or a lot that might be sold, you know, because it was, and then we also have non-conforming parcels too.
We do. That's the last page of the packet, the non-conforming parcels. Those are all under 10,000 square feet. And, you know, we did include information for a description, sort of to give it a little bit of context, but we didn't dive into the minutia of those parcels. The Southold properties, because of our
Right.
bond agreement,
Yeah.
you know, we just left those as a separate list.
Right, and we had said from the beginning that at some point we thought we would make some more specific recommendations for
Right.
passive recreation type use
Mm-hmm.
over there. So I don't know, I guess I'm interested in what the committee thinks about where do we go from here?
Don't I have to give a recommendation to do with Southport Road?
We have to give recommendations on that, and we said, we asked the selectmen to keep it open, that we'd like to give some specific recommendations on Southfield Road, but what about the rest of it, I guess is what I'm thinking about. You know, do you all think that what we've got so far is sufficient to respond to the selectmen for their request? I mean, this initially came through the selectmen, wanting this done, and then the town manager took it from there, but, from watching the selectmen's meetings at the time that this was discussed, I don't know how specific they wanted us to be. I think that they were basically trying to get a handle on what did we have, because no one had really looked at it, I think, in its entirety for a while, or maybe ever, I don't know.
I think if ever.
And, you know, and I think the thought was, you know, were there some parcels that perhaps could be sold to generate some revenue, so that maybe we could take that money and put it towards developing some of these other conservation lands or open lands, trails, you know,
Right.
because those things cost money, and, you know.
Do.
where, how can we get some money from something to do something else somewhere else? You know,
Right.
on a parcel that's more conducive to open space, I think. So, Alex, go ahead.
So on the third sheet there, where it says potential residential development, with the Southhold properties on the next page, would that be included with that group?
At this point in time, they wouldn't, but that would certainly be a future
It could be down the
recommendation. It
road.
could be.
Or would that be in the front, the first item, which would be land for potential recreational use?
Well, the way that the Southhold properties have been bonded, essentially the language
Yeah,
bars the town from any use in developing the land. It allows us to use it for passive recreation for
it
10
has to be
years.
for municipal use
For
during the
municipal
term of that
use.
bond.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
should
this is
we
a
qua-
10-year, it's almost like a moratorium.
Should we quantify that after the word Southhold Road properties, in parentheses, make that some sort of bonded recreational use, or what is it? Bonded what? Recreational use?
It's the restriction was established through our funding mechanism
Yeah.
for the
Right.
purchase.
I was just wondering what category that would fall into, of these 5 categories, because
I think it's really kind of a category by itself.
At this point in time, yeah.
Because, I mean, there's nothing to say, I'm sorry for interrupting,
No.
I apologize, but, there's nothing to say, and I hope it doesn't happen, but there's nothing to say that 15 years from now, the town doesn't decide to sell something. I'm not saying they're going to.
Right.
I'm just saying that years and years ago, when they bought what was Packagug Meadows, they sold some of the property to kind of recoup the cost of what they spent to get that land, and that's why we have Goddard Drive
Sure.
and some of those other streets over there.
Right.
I think it was like 25 house lots they sold off. They also, Packagug Church was some of that property too. So, there's nothing to say that it couldn't change. And I'm not saying it's going to. I'm just
No.
saying, I'm just saying,
But not for 10 years.
right, nothing will happen for 10 years
But
as
it
far
can
as
be used for
non,
passive.
right, yes, by the
for 10
town.
years.
Yep,
It
in the
can
10
be used
years.
for passive
Right.
recreation now.
But we-
Perhaps a recommendation that the committee could make is that in so many years, the committee review these parcels for
To see if they,
For the future
if there's a
potential.
change.
when we're getting closer to that time, the town's gonna have to make a decision.
Like 8 years from now.
Yeah.
I
would
mean, it
imagine.
seems like a long time, but
It goes by
It
quick.
flies.
in the life of a municipality, it's really
Right,
not.
and I would
So-
imagine you'd want that 2-year span to
Yeah.
say, okay, these are our recommendations, this is a cursory conversation, and now.
Right, and now, my understanding with that property is that it was bonded for municipal use, which gives us a tax advantage. If that municipal use were, for instance, to say, the town is going to do a housing project, that's municipal use. So there is some potential for developing, although at least this group, and I believe, the majority of folks in town have, supported that purchase to not do that.
Right, right, passive
But
recreation.
municipal use
Right.
has a pretty broad
Definition.
definition. You can put a fire station there.
Sure.
Absolutely, although it
Yep.
wouldn't make any sense.
Well, no, it's too far out, too remote, but you're absolutely right. And I think that when we made our recommendation to the selectmen at the time, we were thinking passive recreation use. And I believe what we wrote in our letter to them was that at some point in the future, we'd like an opportunity to make suggestions on the types of passive recreation use. So is that something maybe we would want to explore further now? Or do you think it should just sit until 8 years from now?
Well, remember that we're already looking at some hiking trails, walking trails in that area, so things are moving forward at a slow pace. I think it would be beneficial for this committee to look at not just the Southhold Road, but all of that property that connects in that area and what doesn't connect. We don't know really for sure if this parcel has any access to it, or is this parcel, sort of like a big map of that whole area would be nice to look at as other people are going to probably come up with ideas of potential use. Okay, you know, we hear of things like, we need to have a swimming pool. Well, it's sort of obvious that if you have land that's, that's deemed for passive recreation, then that would make sense to have it within, somewhere within that whole area.
Right.
But I know I'm still a little confused at times where everything connects. I know there's that 12-foot space
Strip between-
Pappas and this, but, you know, there's other land that is not developed within that, quote, Pappas parcel.
There is, yeah.
And that would be an interesting thing to look at as a committee, to me, because maybe we can give it some thought and see if there's any potential. I don't know if we're stepping on toes with that, but it seems to me open space is sometimes in recreation sort of have to work side by side.
I think they do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, if the committee were to review something to that level and make a recommendation or make a statement on it, it's not gonna hurt anything, right?
No, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
valuable information that,
talking about stuff doesn't hurt anything.
No.
It's
that's helpful, so,
yeah.
yeah.
They want someone to put a spray. They want someone to want to put a spray pack up there too. At one time, for kids and stuff.
I mean, there's a lot of things that I think deserve some talking about. But, you know, as I've mentioned before, the biggest issue is that as that facility is used today, there is no additional, you know, the
Capacity.
lot is filled with cars, and people are parking on the street, and it can be a very messy place up there. So, you know, anything that's added has to come with a
Some
plan of
parking.
managing it.
Right,
You need parking.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, I've already said it, and I'm going to say it again, but speaking just for myself, what's left up there of the old the Packagug Meadows, I'd like to see stay the way that it is. But beyond that, if it's something that, you know, the committee or certainly the town makes a decision that it's going to move forward with parking, you're going to have to be really careful where you lay out parking in there, because their wetlands they're splotched all over that site. And because of that, it makes anything, you have to remember that anything you put there is very costly to build. Like, look at the cost of those underground drainage systems under all those fields, how expensive they were, because the groundwater is so incredibly high right there. You know, and so I think that's something, and I'm not saying it's not feasible, I'm just saying that you have to take a look at the site, you know, and keep that in mind as you move
Oh, I agree.
forward. It's
I
going to be
absolutely
very
agree.
expensive, just like that park was very expensive. You know, it's not, you know, the groundwater is so close to the surface up there.
Even with all the fill.
Along these
Well,
lines,
fill up at the top, yeah.
along these lines, we did related to the trail study that we're performing now. The wetlands were just recently flagged just south of the fields, like coming, you know, south of the lots in that area,
Yeah.
going down towards the forest.
Yeah.
And they found that Ecotech did the flagging. They found that the wetlands have actually expanded since
They have.
the original flagging, and he was proposing or suggesting that it may be an impact of the runoff, you know, that has been created
Yeah.
by the development. And so the wetland has, you know, the water has moved in that sort of that southern fashion, and it's impacting, you know, the growth of, or the expansion of the wetland. So
Wow.
I think those constraints, you know, those are an important piece of the puzzle.
You know, at some point, putting on my former Conservation Commission hat, you might want to consider filing an ANRAD with the Conservation Commission, an abbreviated Notice of Resource Area Delineation, to get it nailed down of where the wetlands are going to be. So that as you move forward with trails and development or anything,
Right.
parking lots, anything, at least that way you'd have it nailed down with the Conservation Commission's decision on, you know, those are the wetlands. We agree, those are the wetlands.
Right.
And then that way you could incorporate that in your design for anything else that you're doing there.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
That could be worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely.
I believe we only apply for an RDA,
Yeah, I know it.
so AMRAD may be a good next step.
Yeah, I think it might be it might be money well spent to get it, so instead of no one's guessing and then the consultant isn't saying one thing, you need the local commission to rule,
Right.
so that's what I think I would suggest.
Could,
You know.
could you move wetlands?
Can you move wetlands?
Yeah, you move to another site,
Lots of things can be done, lots of things have been done.
yes.
Right.
Lots of things have been done that shouldn't have been done.
Yeah, fill it in.
But you'd have to, and pave over it, out of sight, out of mind,
Yep.
Anyways, you have to have somebody look at it and design something. There's a certain amount of wetland alteration. I don't want to speak for the Conservation Commission because I'm not on there anymore, but there's a certain amount of alteration that can be done if you can replicate elsewhere on the site. And I'm not saying that they would approve that, I'm just giving you factual information, that's all.
Okay.
But a lot of people think, there's wetlands, you can't do anything, and that's not necessarily true. It means that there are regulations you have to follow, and, sometimes you have to give back what you take,
Yeah.
so. But I'm sure Ecotech could help you with that. So, do you want to devote some time specifically to South Old Road? Do you want to do that first? Do you want to take the list that has all the suggested recreational uses and maybe drill down on some specific types of recreation before we submit anything to the town manager?
It'd be nice to get a whole map of what, all that land on Packagug Hill looks like.
So do you want to kind of are you suggesting, I'm just trying to get information.
Yeah.
Are you thinking maybe we should look at a section of town
Yeah.
in its entirety with open land
Or,
and then
or
move on to a different section of town? Is that what you think we should do?
that, or just look and see what's up there on, South Hill Road and the Pondfield, that area. See what's left. Like John was mentioned.
But you mean just like the Packagug Meadows,
Yeah.
the Pappas Recreation Site and the South Old Road properties?
Yes.
Those three?
Yeah.
And then you can also throw in there other open spaces that are within that, or next, or abutting it, or so forth, just so we have a good picture of what the potential is, or what the situation that we're facing, and more information as information on wetlands is developed is also going to be, I think, really important. Can't build walking trails through a swamp. Well, you can, but it's
You can,
not as
you
popular.
can put a bridge over it.
Yes.
Bring your mosquito repellent when you use it.
Yes.
Well, do you all agree? Is that what you want to look at the Packagug Hill side of town first? Is that what I'm hearing?
Kind of sounds that way.
Yes, yeah.
Why not?
Okay. Alex,
Take them.
what do you think?
And once we do that, haven't we done this by adding all this property to South Old? That's Packagug Hill, isn't it?
Well, there's a few parcels on Packagug Hill,
It's up to Route 20. Close to Route 20.
but what I'm trying to figure out is you're not saying look at Packagug. You're not saying, are you, John? Are you saying to look at? You're not saying to look at just the Pappas, the Packagug Meadows, and the South Old Road exclusively, because you said parcels that are contiguous to
Right,
that.
I mean, I think that whatever that section of town, if you
Yeah.
will,
Okay.
if we look at that from the diversion tunnel north, I guess, and then, where the power lines are, what the access points are, because even for the walking trails that are being looked at now, they're a long way from the main Pappas complex, and I don't know if that's fine, then that's
Yeah.
fine. But if our goal is partially to get people into the Southwold Meadows to use this, property that we purchased, I
Right.
think that they need to be able to get in there.
So maybe we could take the parcels that are on the list for recreational use, take those that are related to Packagug, take them out and put them with the South Old Road parcels and kind of focus on that first? Is that what?
I just think it's a nice next step.
Sure.
Okay. And then maybe after
So
that,
that's
I'm sorry. So then maybe after that, you'd want to take a look in more depth at what's left on the list of potential recreational spaces?
Yeah, I think so.
In the, in the current list on the first page where it says land with potential for recreational use, haven't we already identified our recommendations for its use? Where it
Not
says committee
specific.
notes and recommendation?
I don't think we had specific ideas, like whether it should be a, I don't know, a soccer field or a dog park, or, you know, do we want to get down to that level of detail?
I didn't think we were, that was our charter at the beginning, but I guess we could do it, but I thought that we had, as we reviewed all these items, we had made our recommendation already.
Well, I think we had segregated it out into parcels that may be sold, or parcels that are non-conforming lots, parcels that might be suitable for walking trails or some type of recreation. And then there were parcels that we just knew you needed to leave alone. Like the
Right.
ones at the end of Arrowhead Ave come to mind that abut the Mass Pike. They're very steep, and I think one of them has wetlands on it, and it was just it's kind of like a buffer at the end of the street
Right.
between them and the pike. So we kind of left it that was just going to stay the way that it is. So, you know, do you think, I guess what I'm just trying to figure out is, does the committee think that what you've done so far answers what they were looking for, or do you think we need to give them a greater level of detail? It sounds like,
How specific were they in requesting our suggestions?
well, what I understood was that they wanted to know what could we do with any of the parcels that the town owns. The town seemed to have a lot of parcels, and nobody really ever looked at the big picture. You know, were there some that we might be able to sell to generate some revenue, to do something with recreational uses, because, you know, it costs money, but,
Somehow I don't think that they're asking for us to be specific, to
I mean, the
nail it
only,
down to us.
yeah, and the only one we had left, you know, we told the selectmen that we wanted to look at South Old Road more specifically. I mean, does, you know,
That could come later, though, that.
yeah, or it could be done now if we're gonna continue our
Yes, if you
diligence
want
now,
to,
but,
yes.
or do we want to communicate with the town manager and say, this is what we've got so far? Do you want us to pursue, we think maybe we'd like to look at the Packagug Hill portion of town, specifically with those parcels in mind, to look at more, you know, to give you more detail of in our recommendations. Would that be, you know, could that be part of our broader charge?
Doesn't hurt to ask and find out the information.
How would you go about that?
We could just simply, we could either ask our professional staff person to send a communication to the manager, or the committee could vote to send I could send a communication, or, you know,
Say, this are the things that we've done, and how do you like that, and what else should we do?
well, I don't know that I'd say, how do you like that, but,
Essentially.
What you
no,
looking for?
but I
But
really
I-
get the gist.
But I don't think there's any harm in sharing this with the town manager at this point.
No, I
And
don't
think it's, you know, it demonstrates that we put a lot of time into this.
Right, we've been working on it pretty
Just to
diligently since the summer.
see if there's an opinion, an assessment of what it is, and
Right.
And
see
tell
if-
her our ideas
Yeah.
about going further on Packagug, and see what we get for a response.
Right, and I do wonder if perhaps this could be ready to go to the Board of Selectmen for their review, but maybe sending it to town manager first, getting that first response is you know, a wise idea, and then if she'd like, or if the committee would like, we could present the findings to the Board of Selectmen
can I,
and elicit a response from them as well.
excuse me,
Yep.
one concern I have in the way this is broken down, in the potential residential development section, there's a column that says recreation potential, yes, no. And some of these parcels also are on the land with potential for recreational use. To me, it's one way or the other. I think the only things that we would look at and say there's really potential development for are those that do not have a recreational use.
Okay.
Because, you know, as an open space committee, and I've said this before, I'm not in favor of getting rid of open space.
No.
Okay, so when it comes to, you know, some of these potential residential developments, you know, Granger Cliffs 3 of 3, why is that there and not Granger Cliffs 1 of 3 and 2 of 3? And yet that parcel is on the recreational use list. So I don't know if these require individual examination to see how they potentially are there, but I would like to see anything that has a potential for recreational use and realizing that that can be very passive recreational use
Right.
or even open space, removed from that potential residential development. And we found out if it's possible to, if the town sells land to put that money in a specific place, has that been asked or?
I don't think it's been asked.
Okay, that would be another question for the town manager, I think. Just to research that and see where
Right.
if it aligns with law and so forth.
Weren't they gonna do something with the golf course? Each round, each,
That apparently isn't going to work.
okay.
But anyways, so you're talking about the funds from the sale of any of these town-owned parcels being dedicated to developing some type of recreational opportunity.
Basically, yeah. I mean, if you can sell a house lot or two and start to bank some money, because, I mean, I know we're going into a very difficult fiscal year, it looks like.
Yep,
So, you know, where's money going to come from? It's not going to come out of the
budget.
budget right now. So between grants and maybe, you know, banking some funds, there might be a potential to get this stuff, to make land more useful for people.
To maintain it in some fashion.
Yeah.
We can certainly inquire about that too. So do you all agree about the parcels that are that are listed with recreational or sale? It should be one or the other.
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
please.
I think so.
I'm just trying to remember because I thought there was one like, remember we were talking about the Rotary Beach parcel on Rochdale Street, and there's right now it's a parking. It had been used as a parking lot right across the street.
Right.
Didn't we have a discussion about the fact that if Rotary Beach ended up not being reconstituted, that lot across the street could be a viable building lot? Is my memory
That
serving
is
me?
on,
Yes, yeah.
that's on the,
Okay.
on the potential residential development list.
So that's an example there of where I think the thought was we'd want to keep it for maybe for parking if Rotary Beach was going to come to
Right.
fruition, but if it's never going to be,
What about
it would
Rotary,
be a perfect lot to sell.
Rotary Beach? That'd be a good site too.
To sell?
The actual,
Yeah. If you're gonna sell, if you're
Waterfront.
gonna sell a parking lot, you're never gonna reopen it.
Right, but I don't think we'd sell the parking lot until we knew
Yeah.
what was
right.
going to happen to Rotary Beach.
Right.
You know?
I'd love to see it reopen, but I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, that road has changed so much in
The traffic, yeah.
Yeah, it just from, you know, from the days when Rotary Beach was open, Rochdale Street was not as populated as it is now. It wasn't as big of a
It was
cut
a
to
shortcut.
Leicester. It was, you know, it was a different
different
time,
time.
different use.
Yeah.
And I think that puts that whole plan somewhat in jeopardy because I just can't imagine taking a bunch of kids and crossing that street someday.
They
No.
did.
I mean, at that time, I'm sure it was easy, but nowadays, it's like, if you could somehow have parking on the same side of the street,
And there's no room for
and
that.
there's no room, I know. I know there's no room.
I mean, there was a photo up on Facebook about the number of people ice fishing this weekend, and the cars on Rochdale Street were, trucks at both sides of the road, and there were probably 40 or 50 people out there.
Really?
And
Wow.
so that, which is a good thing. There's no problem with that. But people are going to do what they need to do. But I think when you have an official town beach, if it will,
Yeah.
you really have to have parking, and it's a shame that my mind went blank over here on Central Street.
Oh, Camp
Oh,
Gleason.
Camp
Camp Gleason.
Yeah.
That was ideal.
It was.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
that had its own parking lot.
Yes,
Right.
it did,
you
yeah.
know?
So I mean that is if there was a way to get that back, it would be terrific. And I don't know if that'll ever happen, but it would be nice for the kids.
This does have to do a lot with Route 20, the culverts and stuff.
Seems so, yeah.
Yeah. Dude, they kind of put bridges when they did that.
So the two of them, realistically, it probably would be better if we could get Camp Gleason back because of the parking situation.
And the fact that there's an existing building there that's in pretty good shape, and the bathhouses might need to be torn down.
Replaced.
I wonder if there's a way to find out what it would take to make that swimmable again. It probably would be very expensive to find out, I suppose, right?
I'm not actually familiar with the situation at Gleason.
It's not moving is a problem. The water just sits there.
Just, yeah.
The fire department tried blowing the pipes out.
It has a high level of bacteria all the time because it's pretty stagnant.
So that's the issue, this bacteria issue.
I think they called it turbidity or something like that.
Well, that, yeah, it was because the soils were, stirred up in the water and they couldn't see through it too. But for a while, there was, when was that when Eddie Pond, down along 395 when it was like empty, there was no water in it?
That was like just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Like 6 years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago.
Because something happened to the culvert, I forget now
Something
the
happened to the dam,
details.
didn't it? Or the plates?
Something happened to the culvert underneath the Route 20.
It's
And-
collapsed or something.
All the water, all the water went. The Eddie Pond doesn't have any, there are no inlets to it. It's all surface water that feeds it.
What does the town have on the far side of the water when you're coming down Central Street from here? On the left, you can see it almost looks like a dam.
There's a dam, and that was
Yeah, there's a dam.
repaired a few years
Yeah.
ago.
Okay.
Yeah, that was part of the problem with the
Yeah.
with the flow or the volume that was in Eddie Pond itself.
Right,
And with that repaired, the water has come back up. If I'm,
yeah,
from
but
what
it
I'm
still
concerned.
isn't the same as it used to be. The water is still really low on the far side.
And the dam can't
I mean, it's a
be-
lot better than it was.
Yeah.
But I don't know enough about the mechanics of the dam to know.
Right. If
It
could
was
be
better
used
when
to
they had the
somehow
plates in
create
the-
flow.
They had those steel plates in the culvert to block, to keep the water into Eddie Pond for a while. Because it just couldn't hold, when that dam was, when the dam was in ill repair,
Mhm.
it didn't hold back the water. So all the water just flowed out.
Wow.
So for a while, they kept the plates in the culvert at 20 to prevent that from happening. But then once the dam got repaired, they took the plates out, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. But it's never been quite the same. But apparently it didn't help the water quality, I guess. And I don't know, I mean, for years and years and years, the conditions were the same. I mean, Eddie Pond is what it is, but everybody had swimming lessons from what I understand.
Yes, yep.
Kids went there all the time. So bacteria wasn't an issue. So what's happened? I don't know what you can do to, I don't know what you can do to fix it.
And the problem at Rotary Beach is they throw a disc down, they can't see it.
Right. But I don't know, I've heard that that's not the case anymore.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know.
It was a hopping place in the 70s, but
All right,
Would the Parks and Recreation Department know a little bit more about that? Or to bring it back?
what do what is that committee called now? It's Parks, it's
Recreation?
Recreation and Culture?
Rec and Culture, the committee.
Yeah.
Well, you're saying that the department itself might have some insight?
I
Is that
don't
what you're
know.
asking?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, would they know what it takes to bring it back?
It might, I mean, Bill might have some insight.
Town engineer?
Yeah, he might, and,
Wayne?
Parks, Wayne Bloomquist.
Right.
I think those questions should be asked because I can't see expending energy on something that is never going to happen.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and that would affect what we recommend. I mean,
Well, especially for Rotary Beach, if, you know, that's got a lot of frontage right on Rochdale Street,
It does.
you know?
Yeah, the beachside parcel is also on the list. I think when we reviewed it, you would get like two house lots out of it or something like that. You know, it's waterfront property. It does have some
Got some value.
prime
Yeah.
development value
Yeah.
to it.
and especially if we can take money and use it for
Right.
other good things.
Then it doesn't feel like
Right,
a loss
right,
as much
Exactly.
as yeah, you're turning it into something usable
right,
with
Right.
the funding.
exactly. So, how do you want to broach the subject? Do you want us to communicate with the town manager, present this, and then ask these questions?
Yeah, I think that's the way. And then she can
And ask
just dole
him-
it out to.
Yeah, and if we can pursue this further relative to the Packagug parcel, to start with that,
Mhm.
Sure.
and tell her
I'm
we'd like to
comfortable
look
with
more
that.
into it, and ask these other questions about Rotary Beach and Camp Gleason.
Yes, yeah.
That would make sense.
All right, then is there a motion to that effect?
I will make a motion to that effect. Make a motion that we, what did you say?
Contact the town manager?
Contact the town manager and get her views on, looking into the parcels at Rotary Beach and Camp Gleason, and find if they can ever be, made useful again, and also to get, what are we looking for, a
And
map?
we're gonna,
for
well, we're gonna
Packagug?
submit, are you gonna submit what we've got done so
Yeah,
far?
Right.
And then, and we'll tell her about the committee's idea about looking more into
Packagug.
Packagug Hill specifically
Completely, yes.
for recommendations. Could that be part of our charge?
Mhm.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay.
Second?
Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And we'll ask a question about the funding too.
Yeah,
So maybe we can work on a letter to her.
sure.
Okay.
Would you like our office to draft that, or would you?
Yeah, but I'd like to be a party to it too.
Yes, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah. All right then, so that's what we'll do. And when we get a, do you want to wait until we get a reply from that before we meet again? To figure out our plan of attack? I suppose we really should know where we're going from here.
Yeah.
I mean, in
Probably
theory-
safely schedule a meeting for a month away.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, Julie is very efficient. And I think some of these things have been looked at. I just don't think we have the
We don't have
the
the
data.
info right here.
Right.
That's-
right.
Sure.
All right, so why don't we do that then? So we'll plan on meeting the first Monday in
March?
March.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the date is, but,
Let's get a
It's
date on
29
that.
days in February, so it'll be a day ahead this time.
So
so
we're
the
looking
second,
at March 7th.
Seven?
March
If
7th?
If we keep
Okay.
it to Monday.
All
Yes.
right. At 6:30 again?
Yeah, that
Yes.
works good.
Okay.
Do you have any information on Paper Streets?
The what?
Our office hasn't received any
Carpenter
up.
Street?
We haven't
Carpenter
received
Street?
any updates
Okay.
on
No
that.
updates, okay. All right. All right, so that's what we will do, and we'll get that together. All right, so we're down to item number 3 on the agenda. Is there any public comment?
No, there isn't.
Okay. So we just decided our next meeting will be March 7th at 6:30. I had the minutes for January 4th from that meeting. I emailed them to you last night. I'm sorry they were last day,
That's
but...
okay.
And I think, I'm sorry, I almost called you Adam. Eric gave us the minutes tonight. Now admittedly, I did spell check these, but I didn't read them all the way through because I wanted to get them out to you last night.
I read through them, I
You didn't see
personally
anything?
didn't see anything.
Thank you.
So.
I didn't either, so.
Free help, you know, hey. Well, thank you.
Make a motion to accept it?
Second?
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Okay.
Can I bring up one thing?
Yep.
Although we haven't really been into a lot of controversial territory, I think that it would be nice to see public comment both at the beginning and the end of the meetings. Because I know sometimes people have sat here for the whole meeting, which may not concern what they're talking about. And not that we usually have a huge audience, but
Yeah, you should want to.
that way if there's something on the agenda that somebody wants to make a comment on, they can do it before we discuss it instead of after.
Well, we can do that. I mean, the selectmen are doing that now. We do that at the housing authority.
Yeah,
We have it at
I
the
think
beginning
it
and
works
the end.
well, gives people a little more voice.
So we can have 2 public comments.
But isn't the selectmen only, or one of them, maybe it's housing, it's only what they've discussed during the meeting?
Sometimes.
Okay.
In any event, all right. So we'll add a public comment to the beginning and to the end. All right. So we can do that. It's not a big deal. We don't have any correspondence, so I'm down to adjournment. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. 7:17. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.